y'all doing today? Y'all see the sun? Y'all
Man,
see this majesty? All of this tis of thee.
it's nice to see a nice day on a Friday for a change. And I looked at the forecast, and it does feel good to finally be creeping into the 70s. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
I know for me, for sure, the weather affects the mood a lot. And I mean, we like mid-April, and we still trying to figure out what jacket we wear on a regular basis.
bro.
It could do something for your
I got the
mental.
whole
Man,
Just in case.
right.
just in case.
I got every season in my car. You just never know.
I the same. A good day on a Friday, and it's coming right on time for me. I'm coming out of a really difficult change management process with the organization, and I feel like things have really turned a corner. Kids are happy, staff seems happy, and everything's moving in the right direction. And then we get a sunny day on top of that, so I'm feeling good.
That's what's up.
Yeah, hold on, but let's not like move past the fact that you were sitting courtside at the
Come on,
Bulls
Yeah,
game
man. You saw that,
this
bro.
week.
No, I didn't pay
Um,
for a seat. Didn't pay. The Bulls
couldn't
gifted
pay
me.
for the
They
seat.
gave me some
my man
seats.
could have
Yeah,
tripped. He could have tripped somebody, bro. He
Hey,
could have tripped
hey,
Demar.
hey, who were you talking trash about?
oh, Matt Brunson. I wasn't even talking trash. What I said was, "Hey Brunson, man, let's take this play off. You're doing all right. Let's take this play off." He went and called for the ball and drove to the hoop. I was
Okay,
like, okay, that's,
okay, and that was you, of course.
yeah,
That was
that
you.
was my fault because he
Yeah.
was chilling. He was chilling.
Okay.
So I learned. I
Um.
learned from him.
All right, y'all. I'm interested. One of y'all let the people know what's
But you
going
got to
on.
pause
Why?
because
Why?
you didn't say how you doing.
Oh, that's real. That's real. That's real. So I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well because across the major fronts of my life, um, I very much feel content. It's not that I feel in control with everything. I'm trying to push away from one, assuming that questions about how am I doing are really about the questions of like, how is my company going? How's the relationship going? How my mama and them, like, all of that is
Mm.
external and it affected me. So I'm practicing this year. I got checked by one of my elders last year. Like, X, you never really say how you doing.
Mm.
You just talk about how is it going with what you're doing.
Mm.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm practicing that
Yeah.
right now. So if I tap into the X
Yeah.
factor, I'm doing well, man. I'm grateful. I am content. And I feel ready for whatever is coming in any of the areas of life that I'm focused on right now.
You are fortunate that you get to describe your state of being as the X factor.
You know what? I mean, I feel like the world of Xavier's are fortunate because I'm keeping the standard, and they are able
Yeah.
to then be able to utilize the standard I keep carrying. You know, as an Xavier who's a Leo, it's upon this rock
Don't get him going.
that I build.
Don't get him going. Don't get him going. Don't give him no type of props and kudos. You know,
You can't encourage me, bro. I got a whole encouragement section in the back of my head to be like, you're the best. You're the best. You can do it. No one can. Like,
like since you brought it up, my mother told me that I
I,
got the name Xavier because
Yeah.
hey, I ain't never needed a compliment.
I want to say too, it's great that we shifted the topic considering that Dion can't log on. It would have just been like, it would have
Yeah.
been that awkward.
Yeah.
It would have been,
Agreed.
Yeah.
To
That's
be one
real.
third of a conversation
man.
then.
Yeah, I definitely would have wanted him. I want him on the hot seat for this conversation when we do have it.
Yeah.
Somebody text him right now just to see if you can get to him. But let's go into it, man. I think your Afro is telling me you know a lot about this situation.
You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Um,
look, yeah. Hey, look,
what happened,
my
bro?
students used to
Starting
call
from
me J. Cole. You
give
know,
us
like
give.
I take this
I know.
personal.
I know that. I'm sure they did because you definitely are not the Kendrick rapper. Like Dion is probably the most Kendrick of all of us, and I'm pretty sure Ernest Jamal just owns the label. Um,
Treat us
but
right.
starting from jump, right? We had that. I mean, it was a cold diss track that Kendrick dropped, and then we had J. Cole respond with a track. But let's give us the 2-minute Clips Notes.
Yeah, and I'll say my part. Jamal might want to say something too, but like, I mean, just genuinely, like, I think it's important to say I'm a hip hop fan. Like before I did any of this work. And it's probably, we all have things that we loved before we loved the work that we do. And hip hop is a part of us, a part of our culture. Being from Chicago too, like, I mean, just, you can go down the line, Twisted, Common, Do or Die, all of that stuff, Crucial
Yeah.
Conflict, Lupe, Kanye, you know what I'm saying? So,
You just
um,
rolling them off the
you know,
tongue.
it's
Like
just
you
like,
got them.
man, bro, like we got a lot of folks that people still kind of sleep on to me. But like, I say this too. I'm a big fan of Cole and Kendrick. I think I prefer Cole a little bit more just because of, like, I could relate to his story, the college stuff, and you know, just the Hooper and all of that stuff. I can connect with that on a little bit more on a personal level. But fast forwarding this to the present day, J. Cole and Kendrick and of course Drake have always been viewed as by folks as like the three most prominent rappers, if not the three best rappers from this era. I got opinions about Drake and you know, but like I think in terms of popularity and even the way he delivers commercially, he's definitely in that discussion. The last few years, J. Cole, I think he's felt like he has not put himself out there enough outside of just making albums. So he's been coming out the back like doing features with everybody, killing it, murdering it, putting out a dope album, and also too telling people like point blank, I'm the best that's out right now. Even on tracks with like really dope rappers like Benny the Butcher, he out there saying, I'm the GOAT. I don't care what none of
Yeah,
y'all saying. I'm
middle child went hard.
Yeah.
bro. Middle child still not like J. Cole has been so he been talking that, right? Kendrick, he put out an album, he gone, he like doing his thing, man. Like, more power to him to be at that level of popularity and still to be able to have like a private life. I think it's really dope, and we already know like Kendrick pedigree is unmatched. The artistry, just everything, and the way he changed the game, undeniably one of the goats. So Kendrick to me came out of nowhere, and you know, he always had beef with Drake. Just I don't know if it's personal, just but I think a lot of people don't like some aspects of Drake because he toes the line a lot between, you know, I'm a rapper, but I'm a commercial artist and I'm a singer and I'm this. And he's unlike any other in terms of how we view masculinity. That's something we could definitely
He
unpack too.
also
Um,
texts a lot of teenage girls. He's often in a text exchange
yeah,
with teenage girls, and it's
yeah, and that is, yeah, that is a, oh man. hold
you
on,
can't
hold
just
on.
skip
Wait,
past
I'm gonna
that.
say my homie Steven in the chat right now says, see, you know, Kendrick dropped Control in 2013 and called out everybody. Only
That's
Big
right.
Crit responded. That was
That's right.
2013.
That's right. That's a whole decade ago. He like Kendrick is from to me. Kendrick should have been born 10 years earlier. You know how you know people like
Mm-hmm.
that because if he had been in the 90s, it's up. Everybody going at it. But he put that out
But
when like a lot of
he was
people.
only valid in this era. I'm not saying Kendrick was only valid for this reason, but I am saying that I think Kendrick was valid in this era because of what the 90s
Oh yeah,
was. Like Kendrick was
yeah,
like holding on to the power of South Central of LA and that whole vibe of like that sound. Like
yeah.
Kendrick brought that into the mid 2000s.
Yeah, I mean more so the competitive nature, you know. So he don't do a lot of features. He did that in 2013, 2014. He came back out with this feature on Future and Metro Boomin song, mainly aiming at Drake, but because Cole is associated with Drake now because of the songs and the tour, he caught a couple strays too. Everybody is like, yo, what they gonna do? Who gonna strike first? I know J. Cole gonna have something to say because he talking all that stuff, and he dropped a diss about a week ago, you know, which I thought was, you know, it's cool. Like, it wasn't the greatest, but it was like a
Mm.
jab. You know, it had some lines, but I wouldn't really play it that much after. And then 2 days later, he apologized. And now we're in this discussion of like, to me, it's two conversations. It's being true to the culture of hip hop, and then it's being true to yourself personally as a man and being honest with your feelings. And that's why I think this conversation is so great and it's big because like, yo, we can't front on doing what's best for you spiritually, mentally, and personally, but at the same time, we talking about like our art is competitive historically, and you said I'm that, but then you punched and said I'm not really, I'm done. So I think that kind
and
of
and
summarizes it.
and really spent the better part of a couple of years saying I'm that guy, don't try me.
The
And
album he just put out, he said, I swear to God, I'm the best in the world.
right, right, and promises basically a certain lyrical death to anybody who said anything about that. I've been a J. Cole fan, and there are a few things that strike me about what's happening with Beef, and then this response to it. I People are calling this. I saw one thing in the chat is like the soft man era of hip hop, but I want to recall that the 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 biggest two artists of hip hop when I was coming up are dead. The biggest two producers and moguls of hip hop when I was coming up are either in prison or prison bound. We got Suge Knight, Diddy. We got Tupac, Biggie, dead or in prison or prison bound. The culture of hip hop has changed, and people can call that soft. But I think there was a almost a psychopathic element. You know, Tupac threatened to kill everybody's children. He said, "My fo, so make sure all your kids don't
Yeah.
die." Like and we just took that like, whoa, he's passionate.
That was a dope line.
It was, yeah,
Yeah.
and we just roll with it. Biggie was often talking about um,
Oh,
the death of children, the
great.
assault of children, the there are elements of that we shouldn't even accept. So when we see something different and we say like, oh, they're not going at each other's throats, the people who did it the most are dead. The people who really bought into that culture are no longer with us because of the elements of that culture and what we found acceptable in it. So I have no problem with the shift in hip hop. That's going to keep people alive. It's going to stop glorifying this continual assault on one another. That doesn't mean you can't be competitive, but I welcome this change. Now, when we talk about this apology from J. Cole, though, here's my thing: you put out the track, you come back with an apology, but you offer no repair. An apology without repair is
What
manipulation. An
was in the
apology,
apology?
he says it didn't sit well with me. I shouldn't have done it. You know, that was basically this doesn't bring me peace. I did the thing. It was the lamest thing I ever did in my life. I love Kendrick. Kendrick's amazing. His album's great. I shouldn't have made this track. In my view, that's an apology without repair. That's an expression of regret. So if we've done something, we believe that there's harm that's been done, and what do we do to repair that harm? I think there's a broader conversation
Hmm.
about how we apologize. But also, I'm looking at this, and he made a diss track about No Name when she said. Um, uh, Rappers aren't coming out and stepping up for our causes after George Floyd died, and he said, "I feel like you're talking about me." Yeah, this track about her. He didn't apologize for her. It did not sit right with his soul. He came back to Lil Pump when Lil Pump made a song about him with 1985. He made a diss track and disguised it as advice. He didn't apologize to Lil Pump at that point. So what is it that makes this the need to apologize different here? You came out with the same level of ferocity that you came for both of those, like kind of restrained, but still dismissive of who they are as people. But you don't apologize to either of those, but you have to apologize to Kendrick because you have a different level of respect for Kendrick. Why don't you have the same respect for No Name? Why don't you have the same respect for this person, Lil Pump, that you were pretending to give advice to in a song? So we have an apology with no repair, which I think we often do in society. When he says, I'll put my chin out, you can hit me as hard as you want, take your best shot. We often think of retribution. We also often think of revenge as repair and as justice. And that's what he expressed in there. You can take your revenge if you want to. So in my view, there's an apology with no repair. There are the people who he didn't apologize to. And then there are the other straight shots that he sent out, even on his past album, the straight shots at the trans community. Like nobody was talking to him about
Yeah.
that. But to make a comment about trans people unsolicited didn't make any sense to me. There's no apology for that. So who was he apologizing to? Why? And who is he withholding those apologies from? That's really interesting to me.
Yeah,
There's a
I
lot
think
there. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna add on to the part, about the for someone who's a lyricist of his caliber, the trans line definitely too. Like it was just in the song. I mean, you had Absol, you had Daylight. They was just spitting heat. He was spitting heat, and then it was just so out of place, and it wasn't called for. And I think for someone again, we're not saying that he's this professor, but we do know that we hold him and Kendrick to a higher standard than we do a Drake or something like that, even though they're all like in that group of being popular rappers. We know he's aware of these things. And like, so again, to publicly again come out and make this grand apology or say that a regretful statement that Jamal is saying, and then to not even include that, it is questionable. And it's something that makes me wonder, like you said, what are you truly apologizing for? To me, it seems to be a little bit steeped in fear. And I don't know the man personally, but like Kendrick ain't nobody to play with. Let's just be real. It's almost like the dude on the block that was really going at your boy, and you caught a little bit, and you was ready to fight, and then you threw a punch, you was like, oh man, I ain't mean to do that. My bad.
Right,
I hope
right.
I ain't make you too mad. Because nobody knows what Kendrick's thinking. The only reason we know what J. Cole was thinking is because that was the same weekend as his Dreamville Fest. We
Mm.
don't know what Kendrick thinking, bro. He might have a whole album.
Yeah,
No.
I think Cole could be in trouble. I think Cole could be in
I
real
mean,
trouble.
Simba already came at him, but like, I mean,
Right.
that's for the hip hop heads,
Yeah.
I wanna go back to some of the stuff that Jamal was saying, man. This transition in hip hop, and I think that it's interesting that you brought up the 80s and the 90s, right? And what hip hop was, what rap was. Let me just be more clear. I think in the 90s, and specifically what became known as like gangster rap, and the imagery of the thug, and these sorts of things, even like Pac, like just putting thug life across his stomach, right? I yelled thug life and empty the clip. That was one of his lines. I used to love that line.
Yeah.
As the skinny dude with glasses in musical theater, I was like, thug life,
Yeah. Thug
empty the
life and
clip,
empty the clip.
like it's just all in your head, you just caught up in it. But the reality is I want to draw a line of distinction between glorifying violence and engaging in braggadocious behavior about your own like talents, right? And I think that where this beef right now is at, like I'm just gonna come out and say it. I love a good rap beef. I loved Eminem and Benzino.
Mm.
I love when Ether dropped against Jay-Z, when Jay-Z and Nas. Y'all remember when Ether
Yeah.
dropped?
man, the
Ether
world
was
stopped.
Yeah.
that. That was. Yeah. Video of Benzino. Last 20 years, every time I come on, somebody want to ask me about Eminem, man. Like part of me is like, ha ha, because I was there. Like,
Right.
like when
Yeah.
Eminem was just torching Benzino, but the other
Yeah.
side of me is like, yo, this is a man who's hurt,
Mm.
right? Like the competition went so far that 20 years later, it is the only thing that is known about his life. Like when we laugh at people and these sort of like Dylon coming out from
Mm.
about Chappelle's show, right? Like Dylon's like, man, I ain't been able to get on a label. I ain't been able to lay a track
Yeah.
ever since he said that Dylon thing, right? Like the reality of the competitive spirit, and I want to say the competitive spirit in hip hop, I think mirrors the way in which competition often happens in masculinity, because part of the thing that I appreciate about competition in amongst the men I've known who I've competed with is that there is still a call for respect and honor while we compete and after we compete. Like you lose, if you lost, bro, you lost. Like don't be shady, don't be salty, don't get in your feelings about it. Like it was a good lose. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's what when people look at Ernest had talked about the culture of hip hop, right, as something we have to understand versus like the importance of what it means for people to say like, hey, my heart hurts on this. Like the culture of hip hop is a competitive one. The culture of hip hop started with the ciphers. Ciphers were community spaces, but also it was about the question of who got the best, who's the best MC here, right? Like that started from jump, like Kumo D. That started from the '70s, the '80s. Like so I think about how a 17, 18, 19, like I was like 17 years old when Ether dropped. Like I think about how a 17-year-old now who didn't grow up watching the competitive nature of hip hop, the hyper masculine version of hip hop, the beefs there was five, six, seven major beefs a
Mm.
year when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Like that was half of the tracks that was on the radio. Like nowadays, you get one or two beefs every 3 years,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not like I don't think people are used to this. Like our generation, we're used to this and we know how to deal. We know how to understand it. And I think the pushback against an apology comes out of us older heads who can see like, hey man, it's a competition, bro. Like, like you
Yeah.
ain't gotta apologize when you stepped in the ring and they stepped in the ring and y'all was, I mean, shooting shots at each other. Like that's just this. Like you don't. It's not necessary for you to act like you need to do that when the culture is one that's very different. Like it's about
Right.
who wins. It's not
Right.
about participation, right? And
Yeah.
like being upset because someone won.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, just even You know, I think what has happened a lot in our community, because if we look at this historically, we've been playing, our parents played the
Oh
dozens. You know, we
man,
grew up hating each other, you
bro,
know, and it gets to
y'all
the
was
point
roasting
where,
me in the chat this
bruh,
morning.
like that's all we do. That's all like that's our culture is we uplift each other by, you know, throwing shade, little disrespect, like slight disrespect. That's how we show love. It's something that predates hip hop,
Yeah,
and even when hip hop, like breakdancers battle, DJs battle, graffiti
yeah,
artists battle, and
yeah,
there's no love lost. When we gather to see a boxing match, they gonna hug right after that. You know what I'm
yep,
saying? There's, like you said, there's no shame in losing, but I think also too, like nobody, to me, Nas won that, but we don't say Jay ain't that. And even some
right.
of the stuff Jay put out after was cold, right? But I think
We
what
don't
what
really.
he was Jay, Jay. If
hold on, let me
reasonable
hurry up
doubt,
for y'all.
if
But look, check
reasonable
this out.
doubt,
Check it
no,
out.
okay, okay, okay.
I should have said that. I should have held it. but I think where it becomes an issue in our culture is for a group of people who have been emasculated historically so long. We often look at these victories as not just being a victory. For us, it's symbolic of something bigger. The same way South Carolina and Iowa just won the basketball game, it's symbolic of something else. So if I beat you in rapping, I'm not just a better rapper. I'm that dude. I'm the man. I'm this, I'm that. You know what I'm saying? And I think we have to distinguish between a healthy battle and then there's beef. And
Yeah,
J. Cole and Kendrick have shown no history of disliking each other, right? But he threw a couple shots.
yeah,
I just feel like, is there a way for us in this era to find a way to battle without having beef? I can't recall that a time I've even heard more recently in this history battle rap without somebody saying they about to kill somebody, grab a gun. And I think for J. Cole, that's the part that I admire. I think he knew. I think we all know. Like, I have a space I don't want to go to. You know, and sometimes even online, you'll find those times people commenting crazy stuff. You got to make a decision.
yeah,
Do I want to like spend my good energy on this person I'm never gonna meet, and feel like I'm vindicated because I won this, or do I want to step away and let him feel like he won? I think J. Cole and everybody else, we all know we got that space, and he probably felt, if I go there, I'm gonna go, but
yeah,
and it's gonna be a battle, but the people around me probably ain't gonna, because what does this look like too? Because J. Cole is technically east, right, southeast, and then you got Kendrick. You know how the media do, even within our own community. Some they gonna start. Is this east west? Is this a revival of? And it's like, bro, we just out here rapping. So in
yeah,
that perspective, I kind of feel like J. Cole is like, look, man, I'm dang near 40 years old. I'm trying to get this one album. I'm still trying to prove my GOAT status. And even though it's gonna look bad, I got to make a decision that's the best. Now, who knows, bro? 5, 10 years from now, we probably will say that was a very intelligent decision that he made. And also, too, we've often talked about this on this call of listening to that inner voice, listening to that higher self, right? And understanding that, look, this is not where I need to be right now. This ain't the space for me. I got to separate myself, and I'm gonna let them deal with that, or I'm gonna take the shot. I'm gonna look bad for the moment, but I got to protect my peace, and that's one of the most grown up, mature things anybody can do. I can't wait to talk to a group of kids about this for real.
I I'm curious though, because was it a week or 2 weeks between the diss and the response? There's a lot of time to reflect. In that time, he wrote lyrics, reread those lyrics, went into a booth, recorded those lyrics,
No, it was a
decided where it
seven
was going
minute
to
drill.
go. What's that again?
He said it was a seven
Yeah,
minute drill.
but then he asked for 7 more minutes, right? He did two 7 minute drills back to back. There was a decision to say, like, I'm going to follow this instinct down this path to write this song. That that can be momentary, right? You put it on the track. You do your double vocals on the track. You get the master. You get everything level, all the levels done. You play it back. You decide where it goes on your track list. You think about the messaging to see where it fits on your track list. You wait another week, where this is still on your mind, and then after it comes out, you then start to reflect. Now, I think better late
I
than
think that's because
never.
it was whack. I don't.
Yeah.
Hey, it
Jay,
was.
I just want to be. I just want to be clear. Like I just. I mean, Steven's bringing up a good point in the chat right now. Like the question of is apology a part of the competitive nature of hip hop, and side note, the reality of rap beefs, right? Like that's his own thing. Then it's a question of what responsibility do large, visible rappers have, knowing what we saw happen after the Source Awards in '97, and that's still lingering in the culture of hip hop, and knowing how the media is and how social media is, and also how our black people are, in almost like wanting the fire to happen, and then be like, "See, we always kill each other." Like we feed the
Yeah.
fire for that. Like we know, and I think that J. Cole knows that, Kendrick knows that. They've rapped about these things for years. Like they know this, right? And I think in the best in the if we assume the best of best intentions, J. Cole might have seen that and said, "Yo, let me just get ahead of this, and yeah, we squashing this right now. I'm gonna take a L." But the other side of this is, if we get back to the nature of, we talking about hip hop, we talking about battle raps. Your verse was whack. Your verse was whack. So what you brought to the table was worth apology.
It was a jab, man. It was a
It
jab.
was
He was setting them up.
like,
What you
it
brought to the,
wasn't a jab, bro.
I think
Jamal
the
just said it right.
answer,
The man went to the
yeah, he
booth,
did.
recorded, had over a week and a half, came out, probably had all his boys listen. They was like, "Yo, this go hard," right? Everybody agree. Y'all know how we are. Like everybody, the number of cosigns that gotta happen before something go out to print, bro, that
Yeah,
ain't worth reading. I think
yeah,
that we also have to talk about the fact that the competitive nature is one thing, the culture is one thing, the apologizing and masculinity is one thing, but the question of the quality of your product
mm.
not being up to what Kendrick put out. Kendrick put out like I've listened to Kendrick's joint probably like seven, eight,
It's the
nine
number
times.
one
G,
song right now, and it hit hard in that.
would you listen to 7 Minute Drill more than just to hear what it responds to with
And,
Big?
No,
No,
he said,
exactly. So
"Mother F
I
this
think that
big
put
three. It's just big meat."
that was cold. Boom.
Boom.
I think
Oh, it
that
was
puts the
so
answer
good.
somewhere in the middle, though.
It
That,
was
there is an
so
answer in the
good.
middle of this. There is that, on one end, having a whack verse, on the other end, recognizing where this could go. I think maybe that realization that could come after you put it out is how far you really have to go to make this worthwhile. How far do you have to take it for people to have respect for you at the end of this beef? I put out this little jab and people aren't happy with it. That means I'm going to have to go here. That means he's going to have to go there. That means this is going to turn into this. And the media is going to say that. And the social media is going to be this. And now we have this whole
Yeah.
big thing.
Let's look at this too. Like I was listening to because I just been in like a old school diss mode. So I'm over here listening to
What?
all these
Which
'90s.
ones you listening to, bro?
I'm listening, man. I'm listening to Biggie. I'm listening to Cannabis and
Cannabis and
LL.
LL Cool J.
Bruh,
Cannabis.
bruh,
Yo, the
99%
Cannabis,
of your
cannabis.
fans don't exist.
man.
Come on.
I forgot about cannabis.
Cannabis was Cannabis was supposed to be something of
Remember
the
he
day,
had the
man.
boxing ring video?
Bro, he had Mike Tyson on the intro.
99% of your fans don't exist. No.
Uh,
But this is exactly it, right? We love good lyrics. We love quality composition,
right.
and that's why I'm saying, like, that's so integral to hip. And I feel like that's what's also been lost. I'm just gonna say broadly
Yeah.
in hip hop culture, the question of quality lines. We don't have a lot of lyricists anymore, and that's why I
Yeah.
think people really want J. Cole to
Yeah.
be out here. They
Th-
want Kendrick to have some platform time, because we got a bunch of shorties that, like, it's just about the sound
Yeah.
and the TikTok ability of
Yeah.
a clip versus, like, yo, a composition. You're an artist
Yeah.
first.
You
They
also
like they are. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
you also know that those times when you play in the dozens. I watch it a lot
You
with
got to
kids.
stop playing. You got to stop saying the dozens, bro, because you're too young for that. Like the dozens. That's like, you might as well say reefer.
I'm turning
Like
30, I'm
like,
turning 36 this year. I'm 2 years younger than you.
bro, I'm about to be 40 next year. Don't even act like it, bro. Like, don't even act like it,
Well,
bro. Nah, bro, we not.
that's a historical African American term.
That ain't no playing the dozens. Dozens of what? Eggs? Like, bro, bruh, roasting, bro. We
You
roasting.
know what?
Let's talk about roasting, but not the dozens.
Oh, come on. You know what two kids are going at each other, and 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 there's one of them where you can tell like he's really trying to hurt that kid.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Like they're getting
it's
louder,
serious.
they're getting
Yeah,
stronger with
that's
it.
different.
These are couchless jokes, but he really wants that kid to cry. He wants to embarrass this person. He wants to put
Yeah.
him down. He wants other people to change how they think about him. And I think there's always an element of that in any type of beef. There's an element of contempt that has to come out for you to give the people what they want. because it can't just be playfully jabbing each other over the course of a few years. Like you actually trying to destroy that person's career.
Yeah,
Eminem was trying
I was
to
just
yeah,
thinking of that.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
nah, like
Yeah.
that was
Still,
different. That
yeah.
was different. Yeah, Benzino Eminem thing is
But
that's like
have
the
we
epitome of
out outside of a URL or Smack DVD, have we seen a battle where it was like, all right, we battling, we done, right? And I was what I was saying was like I was listening to those rap beef songs, and
yes.
they had Pusha T's verse against Drake, bro. Like that was ooh, I hurt not just because of the kid reference, but then the reference about his producer who was sick.
yeah.
Like, in order to effectively, like, you can't look. What can you diss about Kendrick? Let's be real, or really even J. Cole. Like, what do you? And I think he threw out some stuff that was like, oh, to pimp a butterfly. Like, you can't really say nothing. So, in order to really diss Kendrick, you got to send somebody to Compton, bro, and
It can
come
be
up with some.
personal.
And then it gets personal, and then we back to. So I think that's
Yeah,
kind of he probably was like, man, I can't, because again, there's no vitriol. I can't really diss this dude, man. And in the nature of a rap battle that we have now is the same nature to me as a comment section, because we are people who we are
mm,
expressive, we're tonal. A lot of the stuff that gets taken out of context and comments would be better had in a conversation. So when you rap battling somebody 100 miles away, y'all laying verses with your crews and stuff, everything's taken out of context. But if we step on the stage together and we trade some like that's why verses was so cold. We trading songs. These
yeah.
weren't even aimed at each other. We trading our catalog, bro. I used to love like Slaughterhouse when Joe Budden and all them got together, but like Joe Budden and Royce had beef before. But I prefer when they made songs. Bro, like, you know how cold it would have been if J. Cole was like, look, man, me and Kendrick, let's hop on the track and see who could do it better. Like, that to me is better than beef. I want to see y'all do an EP or
You know
something,
what,
and then we can debate.
bro? Like, what's interesting? Okay, so that last. So first off, man, there's so much in there, bro. There's so much. This is crazy. This is like the first barbershop conversation we've had on the Unsaid, where it's like a straight up just cultural moment conversation. So this is real interesting, man, because we always be getting real hyper intellectual. Um, I'll say this, man. Like, one, yes, we have seen a beef that had a positive resolution, and I would say that that was Jay and Nas.
Well, I mean, during. I mean, like, not, and I mean, like, it got bad
It
though,
got
bruh.
Oh, of course. I'm not. No, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
But your point was, did we see beefs that had resolution and like where it turned around? Yeah, Jay and Nas. By the time both of them hit 40, man, they wasn't going for this stuff. Like, and plus they already had their own names in their own right. I mean, we saw it. I was just about to pull that Kendrick right. He's like, what do you say? Prince outlived Mike Jack or something like that. Like that was just, oh my god.
All your dog's gonna get buried. That's a K for
He
all them
said
nines. They gonna
Pet
see
K
Pet
Foley.
Cemetery. Oh
Cemetery.
my God,
Bum.
bro. The lyrical play. Like it was like Kendrick. Like if I'm looking at, I'm like, yo, that was that I was like, we needed this.
We did.
Like,
Yeah.
like the culture needed lyricism right now. We needed some stuff. But to your point, E, that line that where it becomes dangerous is where it becomes hyper personal, and you're no longer battling a person, you're battling their legacy and trying to destroy them in the world in front of the Barabbases, in front of the angry mob that's waiting to take somebody who you ain't even trying to really hurt. Like this is the I think this is why, my elders always say like, hey, y'all got to chill out with this roasting stuff, this beef and stuff, this Planet Dozen stuff, because you are playing with fire. You are playing with fire. You're playing with fire when you're talking about a type of engagement that the hotter it is, it only gets hot when the fuel of like a person's identity comes on. When the fuel of like past mistakes comes on, you bringing in Drake's kids into this. Like you bringing in all of these things that like people, hey man, like I don't even want to talk to the reporters about that. You gonna throw that on Front Street in a song? Like that's where it gets real dangerous. That gets real dangerous. And I think that's different from even what we saw in the 90s where people were just straight up, the rap songs themselves were just about killing you outright. They didn't even have a target. It's like Biggie and Pac and them, they coming on, they just saying anybody, everybody, all the people, right? Like everybody can die. And rap was very much about the idea of specifically violence versus disrespect, right? And I think we're constantly playing with fire when we're talking about not only celebrating but continuing to engage in a type of sport, right? That has the ability to go there. But we also have seen the resolution of that over time, and that's why I go back to, yeah, it was tough. It was real, like the Jay-Z and Nas thing was rough. The Eminem joint. What was it had the, oh man, the 808s were so crazy on that Eminem track. I think Biggie was on it too. I remember the diss track that M did.
He put Biggie on? Yeah, I had
I think he was it Biggie?
an old verse.
Renegade. That was Jay. Jay was on the
Oh,
track. Renegade.
oh
Y'all
yeah,
remember
yeah.
Renegade?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Renegade was
of course. Jay got
incredible.
smoked on his own. Yeah.
Or let's think about where two rappers get together on the same track, and then the world says, yo, this was a competition, though they don't say it was a beef.
Yeah,
Lil Baby and Drake.
yeah,
Lil Baby and Drake on that song that came out like 2 years ago, man. Lil Baby ate Drake up. They even made
yeah,
cartoons where it was like, look, DJ Khaled in the studio, like, you know what I mean? Like how you
yeah,
get a feature on somebody else's track and you better than the
yeah,
main. You
yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
It,
that elevated Lil Baby's career to be on a track with Drake, and his verse was way high. But that goes back to, you got to understand the culture of hip hop,
yeah,
which is not just this question of like, is it a song? It's a question of, yo, was that a hot line?
Mhm.
right.
I
We
don't know if I agree that it's gotten more personal, that it's more attacking a person's identity than in the past. Think about
Oh,
I'll
I'm not
never
saying
play.
that. I'm not
Okay.
saying, I think there was way worse in the past.
Yeah. All right.
first off, you claim West
Yeah.
Yeah,
Side.
He's talking about people sick of still, you
right.
know. It was very personal, and still is in a different way. And I think one of the dangerous things that happens, and I think this is something that has endured, is what you're really attacking is somebody's masculinity. And when you feel that
I was waiting
they're
for us to go
back
there.
against the wall in your own masculinity, you come out swinging in ways that you may not have come out swinging before. And even in the J. Cole, he starts to feel like maybe I'm towing this line. Maybe I'm towing this line of attacking this man's masculinity, and he's gonna have to come back with something. He's gonna blow right past that line, and then what am I gonna do? So how do I stop this right now before it gets too heavy? You start attacking somebody's masculinity, and in the culture that we've set, they have to fight back, or they lose something that's so important to them.
Yeah. And even look when you think about Kendrick's verse, it wasn't a personal shot at them. It was talking about the song, catalog. It's like it ain't the big three. I'm on my own. He was talking about the dog. Well, what is it called? With my dogs, whatever Drake last album was called, for my
Yeah,
dogs.
yeah.
And then he talked about clicking up like he didn't. It was, and again, it was just a verse. But even that was, and it was lethal. So I think that we have to distinguish between, if we're in a culture where battles happen, how do we take how do we take the feeling of it being a personal attack? And that's often what
You
happens
can't.
too sometimes, when we feel like somebody might be critiquing something, like a piece of content, or something we said during a speech, and we take it personal, like they disrupting our whole life. And that speaks to having a fragile ego that we have to really confront, because it's not always about us, it's about how somebody views that, right? And I think we also, taking it back to the intellectual side of this, we have to be clear on when we're bringing our broken selves and our trauma bound selves in spaces, in different cultures, and disrupting what that culture had intended for us. Because again, when hip hop wasn't created for us to beef more and hurt each other more, but when you create hip hop within the crack era, mass incarceration, war on drugs, like within capitalism, it turns from, the bridge is over, Kumo D, LL Cool J, then it turns to, just in the 90s, we talking, at that point, hip hop ain't even been a commercial entity for 20 years before somebody gets shot and killed. You know what I'm
Bro, but
saying?
that's what Easy E and Ice Cube and all of them brought into hip hop. Like that was like the New York hip hop wasn't the same thing as the LA hip hop. And the reality is that, if you remember back then, man, there was a fight across the US to bring to remove the regionality out of hip hop and to let the best rapper get the stage. But New York was dominating. New York was dominating. That's why they call, the West Coast rap, the East Coast rap. Then you remember what happened at the Source Awards, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Source Awards understood this. That's why Outkast won in '97, because they was like, yo, this is getting so hot. Let's bring somebody from the South in. And then next thing you know, what we got? We got Mike Jones. We got sitting on fofos. We got spinning rims. We got all of this stuff that's culturally different.
Right.
And now we're in the space where the entire regionality of the U.S. has been collapsed, and that is no longer a major part of hip hop. You don't hear nobody saying like, yo, where was X, whatever this rapper was, or this rapper who's 19 or 20 right now, like where they from, like it don't really matter no more. But I say this just to say that in order to enter the chat and dethrone or remove the focus from whoever currently has the seat, you're going to have to do something different. And I think that's what we saw happening in hip hop in the 90s. Like something different had to, when Snoop came in with that sound, the sound of his voice was radically different from what you were hearing from Rakim.
Mm.
Radically different. Like the sound was different, the musicality, the swaggery of it versus the hard syncopated beats. And we doing like that they were like, yeah, we ain't doing that no more. We over here, man. We easy, bro. The sun is bright out in the south. Like it was different, and it created a whole market for a different sound. Same thing when the South rose up. Like the South rose up and people were like, yo, we ain't really heard nothing like this before.
I was gonna
Right?
say I
Like
don't like the phrase "the South rose up."
that's a great point. Sociologically speaking, that is a great point. I retract that framing, but the point still stands that in order to get some space in the ring, you got to be punching different for the crowd to notice.
and
And
and sometimes within capitalism, punching different might mean punching more or punching harder, and the race can become
we're
who's
punching
willing to do
dangerously.
more. Right? Who's willing to do more? Who's willing to go the farthest? Who's willing to take it to a place nobody else is going to take it to? And there can be an arms race in that way that I think is worth acknowledging and trying to avoid.
I think all punching is the arms race.
You're right.
Bad. That was bad.
Absolutely. Literally.
I want to go back to this point Jamal was trying to bring in with just the last 10, 12 minutes we got. Jamal, you were talking about the ways that this shifts into the question of masculinity. And one of the things, and I'm saying this is like an 80s baby who grew up in the 90s with the specter of thug life across the joint, empty the clip and all of this. But also like I grew up in the hood, man, and the definition of what a man was very much understood to be one of possessing a certain physical strength and a willingness to do whatever
Mm-hmm.
to get what's yours. And that was not just something that men were, like the current language right now around masculinity is so historically just it's just not even, it's not, there's no there. Like they don't understand what it was like growing up in the hood back then. Like women wanted that. Women like women were saying like you need to be this way. The men were saying you need to be this way. The dogs were saying you need to be this way. The cats were saying you need like everybody had an opinion about what a man was. And it never really started with intellectual power. And that's why a lot of us who were the nerds, the geeks, the dweebs, we now in our 30s and 40s were like, man, like it was different back. Like y'all didn't care about this stuff. Like, and it wasn't just men not caring, like nobody, like people truly, the culture. And I know there were some people, of course, who cared. Our teachers cared, right? Right? Like our parents wanted the smart kid to win, but the reality was the culture was very carnal. And it was very, very, like sort of like basic, like just basic, like the human as an animal, as the definition of what a male was. It was almost like the sexual male versus sexual female versus the elevated human man. And that bled into the music. And the ways in which we saw competition, right, where it was at its worst, where you see, the Easy E stuff with Dre, where Dre said, "Hey man, you my homie, like I'm not trying to," and then Easy E died from HIV/AIDS, right, and that broke Dr. Dre in a way, right, like the beef ain't worth this, losing a friend like this, right, like, and not being able to walk with him in that time. Same thing we go forward. Pac and Biggie, like nobody thought that, oh, this would happen, but the reality is all of y'all are asking these men to dance with guns, and you're clapping for it, and you're buying records because of it. And you can't just say Biggie and Pac are the ones who have the agency. You have to understand you want the gladiator in the pit. This is when Jay comes out, are you not entertained? This sort of a moment where like men constantly, and I'm not saying that men are solely that I'm trying to figure out my words here, like that they are a helpless victim. I'm not saying that men are a helpless victim in this. What I'm saying is that there's a participation towards our death that has to take in the context of how we commodify being worse, being more carnal, being more animalistic in how we engage with one another. While there is a silver lining, which is, man, look at how we form in brotherhood when there's a little competition. Look at how a couple roasts early in the morning on the group chat, we come on, we all happy, we all, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this silver lining to this stuff that, as I said before, I know we're playing with fire, but fire also exists as an important element in this world and on this earth. And so let us play with it carefully while understanding that it can burn. But we have to also recognize, and the world, Black culture has to recognize that sometimes they want the fire to burn the fire handlers. They want it. They want
Yeah,
it. And as a
yeah.
brother who grew up in the hood, that's definitely what it felt like. They wanted me to fight. They trained me to fight.
Yeah.
They told me if I didn't punch back, I wasn't a man. They made sure that was the case. And we was, by the time I got to Whitney Young, we doing ciphers in Red House, and every day after school we battle rapping. I remember the day David Nguyen got me. He finally got me, bro. And I never showed my face at that cipher again, because the battle verse he got was one that was so personal that only he knew, because he was my homie.
Mm,
Mm,
And he said it, and everybody knew what he was talking about,
mm.
and everybody, all of that, and it's ha ha ha. But I'm like, yo, bro, nah, we done
cross the
here, bro.
line.
Look at
Like you
that.
crossed the line on that.
Who's willing to go further?
Yeah.
Who's willing to
Yeah,
go further in the competition? Who's willing to take it to the place the other person won't take it? That's what we value. That's what we want to see. We want to see that moment where somebody's hurt and somebody's elated.
yeah,
We look at it like we take the person out of the ciphers. We take the feeling out of it, and and we want to see the winner and the loser on the with the highest amount of contrast. I remember growing up in elementary school. I was a smart kid, good grades. I prided myself on being the best fighter in the school. And I felt like that was what was valued about me, to the point where if you thought that you could beat me up, I had to fight you. There was no choice in my mind. I just had to go and do this because that was what was valued about me. You can't hit me. You can't even look like you want to hit me. You can't think that you can hit me without me going and fighting you. And I felt that that was what people loved about me. And I think to a certain extent, I did get a level of respect because of that. Uh, when we talk, when we put this into the context of hip hop, I was a rapper too. My first verses were murder verses. You know what I'm
mm-hmm.
saying? I talk about who I was gonna kill and how and why and so on and
Now
so forth. Because
let's hear one of these verses, bro.
man, I ain't doing
Let's hear
that.
one of these verses, bro.
You're not
Nah,
about
we
to get
need
an
some
11-year
receipts,
old.
bro. I don't believe there was proof of purchase.
You're about to get the 11-year-old
He's
rapper.
selling wolf tickets, boy.
You know,
He ain't real. He ain't real.
you know what? I'll take that.
I thought he was about to drop one, bro.
But I felt that it was valued about me, so that's what I projected. And I think in a lot of cases, people can get caught in that cycle. You can get caught in the cycle,
Yeah,
whether it be in hip hop or in real life, of protecting your masculinity through that brute force. And that's why we've been losing people through it.
Our
yeah,
framework for manhood and masculinity is so limited, man, because it's kind of like how Malcolm X says, if you're not careful, the media have you, viewing people. It's almost like if you're not careful, we'll view, and we have been viewing masculinity through the lens of the colonizer for me, because we celebrate engaging in that which they did to conquer this world. So like all of our lyrics reflect that. Like it has murder, kid. Like it has to be like, even speaking to your point about being very smart in high school and stuff, like growing up. Smack DVDs, they would be like, "Oh, this dude went to a private school." They're like,
yeah,
"Oh, he went to
yeah.
he got good
That was
grades,
Eight
man."
Mile. That was an 8 Mile verse.
Right. So it's like we have to really reflect on that. And one of the things I want to kind of close with too is like I recall like a couple weeks ago I was comments on the radio show about this hate crime that happened in the school in Massachusetts. It was like a mock slave auction and stuff like that on Snapchat. And some of the callers were calling in, and one of the brothers said something like, relatively speaking, something like that happened to him in the 80s going to a majority white school. And he said that kids today are soft because we came back, we fought, we did this and that. And my response was like, bruh, it's okay to be soft. I think that we have like that phrase has such a negative connotation to like it. Our kids are soft because we want to protect. We don't want them to have to experience what we did or what my mom did at grand. Like that's like the most insane statement to make. These kids soft. Like it maybe because we can't we value that hardness and that roughness to the detriment and the demise of ourselves. But I think also too in context and in the long run, what J. Cole might be beneficial to our kids, not for the culture of hip hop, but for our kids, because when have we seen, and I could be wrong, I'm just speaking on top of the head right now, but to see a black man at that level, right, who even looks like our kids with the hairstyle, how he dresses, how he talks, to say man to man, look, bro, I shouldn't have did that. I'm sorry, man. You know, we don't really see that. We
Yeah.
don't we don't we don't really see that, and I think that's for regardless of what his motivation was. I think for me, having been in the class and just knowing how impactful J. Cole was and Kendrick was to those kids, to be able to reference and say, look, man, you don't always have to feed into that like this dude who's wildly successful and set for life.
Yeah.
You don't have, you know what I'm saying?
It's it's I think there's an inability publicly for people to grapple with what does it mean when a man or a boy or other or a masculine person, like we are often demanding resiliency out of us as men. Like resiliency is demanded of us. Like we must endure, we must be stronger than the thing. And I think the challenge is that in the imposition of demanding that we bear weight as men, there is a ready choir who is ready to laugh and point and deny our mask, pull our man card if we ever say we felt something as we
Man.
were being resilient. We must be an unfeeling, resilient, quiet, strong, always and ever more forward creature that never makes a sound under the weight of his situational or systemic oppression. And I know that that's very academifying this conversation a bit, but I say that because I think all of y'all know that part of what people are mad about the apology is that a man said how he felt
Mm.
about the whole situation, and people just don't want to hear what a man thinks about how he feels. And we can assign it to saying like, hey, it's hip hop culture, man. You're not supposed to say ouch. Like I know that. I grew up in hip hop culture. I know that. But I also, in this elevated space, I love that this is what the Gen Zers are doing right now. When I see young Black Gen Zers, I'm like, they're a little different, bro. Like they allow their male peers to say ouch, say what's up. Like they're okay, talking with sort of the therapy language and sort of a thing. I think there's some commodification of that language though. But the reality and again, I'm not trying to give J. Cole a whole bunch of credit because I don't think he need credit for a bad job he did. But I mean,
Look,
the verse wasn't great,
jam,
bro.
man.
It wasn't great, bro. Like okay, I'm telling you, like I
Jamal,
told
you
y'all
know the
from jump.
jab. You know, you
I
setting them up. You setting them up.
I told y'all from jump, I can keep these things separate. As a man, I know how to compartmentalize, right? Like we got the question of, is it aligned with hip hop culture? Is it actually a diss track? And then we got the question of the quality of the lyrics. And I'm just saying on all those fronts, like a judge at the Olympics, bro. Like, yes, it was a beef. Yes, it was a diss track. Yes, it was response. But if you got 7, 8, 9, 10 days and a whole room full of people to help co-sign on something, and that's what you come out with, I'm just gonna say like you could have kept that, right? Like, and I love some J, like middle child. I play every time I need to amp myself up, every time, right? Like but I'm just saying that like let's zoom out here. J. Cole's not angry that J. Cole apologized. The men in the arena, Kendrick ain't came out and been like, man, you soft, you just soft, right? It's the world. That's why I was pointing to him saying like, nah, you got to understand the nature of the arena and how we demand one of these gladiators got to go. And if they don't go by their own sword, then they got to go by ours.
Yeah.
If we can't take the man down with blood, we take him down by his name. And that attachment, like I felt that over my entire life. Like
Yeah.
the reality is that I don't think many people have the stomach to see a man visibly
Mm.
hurting. They have the stomach to imagine that he is inwardly hurt, but they don't have the stomach to see him cry. They don't have the stomach to hear the hey bro, I don't want to hurt my brother. They don't have the stomach for it. And that
Yeah.
goes back to the question of how the world sees men and what they think masculinity should look like.
Yeah.
As I've said many, many times, men are the only gender where you can take away their card. A woman can say, you're not a man. A man can say, man up. And it's on the basis of not how smart you are or how beautiful you are in your spirit or how humble you are, how courageous you are. It's on the basis of, did you show the strength that I think you should be showing?
Yeah.
Because that's what we how we define men. And if you don't have that, let me take that card about you, bro, until you get something back. Come on back. That's why I'm saying I'm not going there with J. Cole. I'm not going to pull some masculinity card. What I'm saying is you had a whack verse. But the situation of how you're engaging with your brother, I ain't mad at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you said something real powerful, man, too, just with that whole thing, like just like a black man expressing himself from a vulnerable place in front of thousands of people, which became millions online. Definitely not what we expected or wanted, but again, that vulnerability. And I would imagine, especially with the Tupac Biggie thing, like, can you imagine how Biggie felt when he heard "Hit 'Em Up"? Like that hurts
Yeah, he's
when
talking
I
about
hear it.
the mother of his children.
Bro,
He's
I
talking
can't
about
even listen to that. Like, I don't want to hear that, really. It takes you to a certain space, and I think that's something that's why I'm hopeful, like, outside of hip hop culture, I'm hopeful for our culture as men, as black men specifically, that can serve as an example just for our day-to-day life, and what that truly means. And if it means that hip hop culture has to take a hit in terms of the competitiveness, then I think it's worth it. It hurts me to say that, really, it does. But if that will be impactful for our kids, like you said, how Gen Z talks about mental health and things like that, and we also have to keep in mind that these kids, our black children, have the highest rates of suicide
yeah,
attempts of any other group, right? Hate crimes are on the rise in this country, in schools. So it's not just hip hop. When hip hop is often the lens from which we view ourselves. Like I said, before I started studying Black history, it was hip hop. It was accessible. I was being taught by Nas and Jay-Z and all these different rappers. So before they even get to that age where they can distinguish, this is real life to them. And this was the time in the movie or the TV show where the dude looked at the camera and he wasn't supposed to.
Mm.
And everybody was like,
yeah,
"Hold on, what you talking about? No, no!" Like like Vince Staples said something so powerful about it too, and he was like, um, it's cool that, like, everybody want to see that beef, but like at the end of the day, who's really benefiting
yeah,
from that, And these dudes, like, they came into the game on major labels, not on the independent stuff. So it's gonna drive a lot of traffic for our blogs in the entertainment industry. I saw Spotify has something in Times Square talking about it's a competitive sport. Spotify in on this
Mm.
too. So if J. Cole and Kendrick was going at it, they would have put so much fuel on this fire, bruh. And the labels are milking it, not them. And then how do you feel when you at home by yourself? So like you said, J. Cole don't, feel bad about apologizing. He
Yeah.
feels good in his soul probably right now.
I recognize that my frustrations with J. Cole are my frustrations with hip hop.
mm,
And I wanted hip hop to grow with me at the same pace that I've grown and in the same direction I've grown. And it hasn't in that way. Because when I think about J. Cole, I can take a look at this situation and say, yes, he had time to not make that diss track and he made the diss track and then he backpedaled, but there is strength in recognizing that I did something I shouldn't have done. And the spaces where I'm still criticizing are the folks that he hasn't apologized to. The strays that he sent out that I don't think should have been sent out. The jabs or the on the gay community, the trans community, the diss track that he made about No Name. Like I want him to see. I want him to see what I see and relate to it in the same way that I do. And I think I'm putting my expectations on him in that way, especially as someone who I have no access to and have no ability to influence. But I want hip hop to grow in the same way that I've grown. And I do acknowledge a step back from a beef as progress in that direction. I think I have to accept that while also looking for, supporting, and pressing for folks that are on the same page with me within the genre.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just want to hold for. I really hope J. Cole was apologizing for the lyrics. Um, I really, I
Hey,
hope
boy,
he
he said you
know,
only drop a hot verse every 30 months or so. That was a nice little lie right there.
bro. If
We can
we gotta
divide.
pull one line out of a track, 7 minutes,
It's a
We can
jab.
divide one line out of seven
bro. Come
minutes.
on, man. Your accuracy low, bro. Like you ain't. I mean, J. Cole done put out too much hot stuff. I mean, I know there's a lot of J. Cole haters out there, um, but
But his
I've been a
heart wasn't in it. I think that's, going back to the hip
yeah,
hop. I feel like if we know this, if you're not passionate about something, it's hard to truly give your all
Yeah, man. You can't.
into it. You
I'm sure
can't like
he got hella
he was
respect
setting them
for
up.
Kendrick. Yeah, Sonny said that was not
But
a line. That was
nah,
not a line, bro. Like that's why. Thank you, thank you. Because if
every
you better
30 months
reach
or something.
that boy reaching like a toothbrush trying to find some value in that J Cole
But
track, boy.
but let's say this too to what Jamal said. Like, can we enter a space in which the way in which you brag about how great you are does not involve denigrating the trans community, the LGBT, the gay community, because that was the thing growing up, right? Because I'm this cold, I got this many women, I'm this rich, and you gay. Oh, you got,
So,
you know what I'm saying?
but E, look. But this is what I'm saying. Like you got that to me only points to how the world defines masculinity.
Yeah,
Like and the steps that you have to step, even if those steps are people and whole
right,
communities, you have to. That's what it means when they say you're punching down. Like you're punching down to folks who systemically and societally do not have the same level of access or power,
right,
and you are using them as a tool. You are parodying them, right? Like to elevate yourself, and now you're standing on people who don't have the same level of agency in the world to punch at you in the same way. There's never been a major trans rapper in it. Let me just stop there. And it's not just and a lot of it has to do with identity. There's never been a mainstream gay rapper. We have this conversation all the time about women and rapping, right? Y'all remember what it was about, how he was talking about Lil Kim when she came out, and everybody was talking about what femininity is and what a woman needs to look like. Like they were debating the question of femininity and womanhood because Little Kim, they're like, you acting real masculine. When Megan Thee Stallion come out, you acting like a man. Like there's constantly this jostling around saying, hey, there's norms here that you have to activate in that are societal and social conditions that we expect you to play within. Now, what hip hop does and what the lyrical ability allows you to do is to bring that from the body into the words. And the question is, will you do that? And that's what I think. I agree with you, Jamal. Like that's where J. Cole did go there, right? He said, hey, I'm gonna go from the body to the words and talking about people, right? And that's trash. Like he didn't need to do that. That's the same thing people called out Chappelle for. Like, yo, like why you throwing these strays out here like this? Like just be funny in your lane, right? Like, but on the other side, I remember where we talk about agency, like Chappelle said after, he's like, hey man, I don't write jokes for my critics. Even if you agree or disagree, it's the question of the right to speak and say what you want to say. But you can say what you want to say. That don't mean that people ain't going to say something back, right? But that whole like come back, like that is the competition. That is the arena. And so I sit here and I say like, nah, we're not getting rid of the arena. I think just humanly, we're not getting rid of the arena. We love this. This is the Jack Nicholson. You want me on this wall. You need me on this wall, right? Like a few good men moment where it's like y'all don't understand what you need. This is Jay, mimicking Gladiator. Where he says, Are you not entertained?" Like the people have to be honest about the price that they demand the people who are doing the deed actually pay. Now, whether those people doing the deeds are doing it dirty, that's different. That's like a cheap trick, right? Like you hitting below the belt. Like everybody knows in boxing why that's bogus. Same way as you just throwing trans people under the wagon. We know that's bogus, bro. Like that's a cheap trick. Like your lyrics should be able to stand without that. Like that's where I get to this question of honor. That's beyond the question of lyrics. I get to this question of, yo, is there honor here? Because I do see honor as an integral part of masculine competition. Like you got to be honorable when you do it. And if you did it dirty, like you get that little sneak diss in there, yeah, that's ha ha funny. But the reality is you don't get no points on the board for that. Or that's absolutely disrespectful, and you definitely not getting no points on the board for that. There's a lot to be said here, y'all. I know we had time. Um, that said, this is a dope little barber. This is a good little switch up. This is a good little switch up
yeah, yeah.
conversation. It seems like, we did get a little intellectual on it, but this is kind of like the barbershop version, us just kicking it or something and talking about the latest rap beef. It's good to chop it up with y'all like this. It's unfortunate Dion wasn't able to have the right type of cell phone plan to make it here today with us. I hope he's at the barber. But y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you for tuning into the Unsaid. You can catch Ernest, Jamal, Xavier, Dion. We try to come on once a week. All of our episodes are hosted on YouTube as well. We try to talk about what a lot of people are not talking about when it comes to Black men, masculinity, identity, culture, leadership, spirituality, etc. And make sure to hit the follow button on all these accounts before you go. Peace.
Peace, y'all.
Right.